go ahead and get started with a U.S. press conference with Jill Ellis and Kristen Press. And again, we've got Interprefy, so please tell what language you're going to speak and who you are. And do have patience for us because our seats are hard to get to sometimes with the microphone, but use the microphone for your question. Right here.
Kristen, Steve Goff from the Washington Post. You've played in Sweden as a professional. You played with the national team against Sweden regularly, including the 16 Olympic game. What is it about this rivalry? What is it about Sweden in general that has really increased the intensity of the matches over the years?
I think that there is a good amount of familiarity between the teams, both in international competition, but also having a few of our players have been in Damallsvenskan. So I think the familiarity always increases intensity. I think there's a good mutual respect. And I think that that's that.
Right there.
Jill, it really Kevin Baxter, LA Times. It really hasn't dared to shine since you guys got here. It's been raining a lot. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, although it's supposed to clear by game time. How has that affected your training, and how do you think it will affect the match if the pitch is slick?
I mean, I think that, we always water the pitch before, so I think that actually helps when you want to play fast and you want to keep the ball on the ground. So for us, I think it doesn't matter, rain or shine. Actually, we got here, I think, a month ahead of you because it was actually sunny the first day we got here. But it's a beautiful area. But yeah, I mean, I think the conditions are what they are, and I think we're used to playing on fast surfaces, so I think it's a good thing.
Grant.
Grant Wall, Sports Illustrated, Fox Sports. Kristen, you were involved in the game in 2016 against Sweden. Obviously, 3 years have passed, but from talking to people, it seems like that game and how things played out has had a pretty big influence on how the U.S. team has changed over the last 3 years in responding to sort of defensive-minded opponents. Would you say that has been the case? And if so, in what way?
Yeah, I personally don't feel that way. I think that one of the most important things about being on this team is staying super present in what we're trying to accomplish. I think that the team feels very different from the group that we took to the Olympics. But at the same time, I remember in 2015 the feeling that the group had from the 2011 loss and how that really motivated people and carried us through that tournament. And I think that despite the fact that it's been 3 years, you don't forget the taste in your mouth when you fail and when you lose in a world championship. And I think that there's a little bit of that will definitely act as motivation. And you always play to win and to never have that feeling again.
Is it possible to ask Jill?
Same question. You need the microphone, though. Hold on. The world needs to hear you, Grant.
No, Jill, I mean, not so much like the Sweden game in 2016, but the style that they played. Did that have an influence on how you changed this team?
I mean, I think our game is constantly evolving. I actually think, when Japan won in 2011, it was a massive sort of tipping point in our sport just to really emphasize the technical game. I think people suddenly took note that technique was really, really important, as well as the physicality part. So I think, what that game sort of said was, yeah, teams are, I think, willing to use different tactics. I think teams now are much more tactically flexible, that you see, a team that's a very experienced group of players prepared to play differently to get results, to play to the strengths. So, I think for me, it was an awareness of saying, hey, we've got to be able to break teams down in multiple ways. It can't just be a ball in behind. It can't just be a set piece. It has to be different ways we can break teams down. And I think that's what this team has, is the capacity to play between lines, over lines, around. It's a multi-dimensional team, and I think that's. But I think overall, in general, I think that it's this evolution you've probably seen on many levels with other teams as well, in terms of just adapting to what the demands of the current game are.
Next question back there.
Diljanutlu, SVT here. Question to Jill.
Sorry.
What kind of Sweden do you expect tomorrow?
What kind of Sweden? Yeah. In terms of style or play or personnel, or you want everything, huh? Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I've obviously watched, film and watched Sweden, and I think it's going to be a very, intense game, combative game, a game probably with a lot of transition, a game that's going to be fiercely competed inside the 18, both ends. It's a team of both sides have a lot of experience in terms of, where they're at. So I think it's going to be a great game. But I think for Sweden, again, I think every coach here wants your team to play to your strengths. And so I think they probably would recognize that and try and do that. And time's up.
Back there.
Bonsoir, Bertrand Queneux de France Bleu, Radio France.
A question in French. Radio France is speaking.
Question pour vous
question
deux, en fait.
for both of you.
Si vous terminez première de votre groupe,
Now, if you wind
vous
up
aurez la
first
France
in
en
your
quart de
group,
finale.
you will be
Est-ce que
playing France
c'est
in
un
the
paramètre qui
quarterfinals.
compte dans votre réflexion,
Is that something that
pour le
counts
match
a lot for
éventuellement de
you?
demain soir ou pas du tout?
Is it
Est-ce
going
que
to have an
vous
impact on
craignez cette équipe de
tomorrow's
France ou pas du tout?
match, or do you fear France at all? What's your take on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, because I think every press conference, you kind of get similar questions. So, I mean, definitely for us, it has to be only one game at a time. There's actually another game in between the quarters in this game. So, there's a lot of things to kind of play out. What I would say to you and what I've said consistently is that I think if our team can focus on our performance and play to the level that we can, then I think we are a challenge and a handful for any team we play. So it's you can't handpick who you want to play in this tournament. It's the team in front of you becomes the priority, and then beyond that, I mean, there's multiple scenarios here. So, for us and for our players, it literally is about one game at a time.
Lady. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roxana with CBS News in English. And question is for Kristen. You talked about being present. Considering your personal history with Sweden, how have you been preparing mentally for this game?
The same way that I prepare for every match. I think that that's really important to have consistency. And I think that being present means that the history becomes irrelevant. And you're doing exactly what you're doing. And as a player, that means preparing for tomorrow the same way I've prepared for every game of my career, with the same attention and intensity that I learned how to do on this team. I think one of the coolest things about this team is how focused we are on every single match, and every single friendly match that we've played in the last 3 years. Up until now, we prepare the same way, and I have learned that from this group, and I take that into my personal preparation as well.
Yeah, just to add to what Kristen said, I think just in the common sense of this, I think players and coaches are not focused on what was, we're focused on what will be, and that's really where you have to be. You've got to look forward, and I think that's exactly, the past and the players. It's a different team, it's a different time, and so I think like she said, I mean, it's the past is irrelevant. It's the game in front of you is the critical piece for us.
Over there.
Question in English. Laurel Walmsley, NPR News. Jill,
Sorry.
obviously you're focused on the game tomorrow, but yesterday Marta set the all-time scoring record in the World Cup. I wondered if you would be willing to just take a moment to talk about why she's so good and just reflect on her career for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's done so much for the game, in just terms of promoting it by who she is and how she plays. She's been around a long time, but is still a very special player. And, congratulations to her for such a great experience in terms of setting that record. But, I think she just, I've seen her enough and just seen how she is. And obviously now she's playing currently with the Pride in Orlando. She's just an ambassador for our sport and, just a good person, but obviously a great soccer player.
Mm-hmm.
Question in English for both player and coach. The Swedish coach talked about the US as one of the best national teams, but also about the best club team in the world, because he was kind of envious of what you have, that you can gather the players. What advantage do you have as a coach to have the players that much, and what advantage is it for you as players?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are growing our domestic league. I think a lot of times, if you were to, you can look at that from two different angles, because you can also look at it, yes, it's time together, but other teams and players around the world are playing 9 months and probably play a lot more minutes in terms of just the ins and outs of league seasons. Against multiple with the European Championship, multiple different teams. So in a way, I think we do have time together, but I also think the club experience is critical, and it's very, very important for a player's development. I mean, that's sometimes why players play in different countries, to get a different sense of the game and a different learning and understanding. So, and I think Lyon, Lyon has a lot of the French players. They're kind of the best of both worlds. I mean, their national team is also a club team, and I think that's a great benefit as well. But I think what we try and spend time in doing is when we are together is maximizing the time, as I think any coach does.
Kristen?
Yeah, and I think from a player's perspective and kind of beyond the soccer field, it is very special what we have and how well the players know each other and how we become a family and we live together. I think that has become really important to me. It's a moving, traveling family, and I think that type of intimacy and connection really does translate to the football.
Back there.
Johan Dahlqvist at the newspaper Expressen. Kristen, what did the time in Sweden and Damallsvenskan do for you as a player and a person?
I think my time in Sweden was incredibly special, and it came at an important time in my career where I wasn't really sure how my career would go or what my destiny was. And I think breaking away from so many of the things that were haunting me in my career and just being free and far from everything and enjoying the game was really refreshing. It was really special. And I think that the lesson that has stayed with me is that if you're so focused on results, it sometimes is harmful to the results. Because in that moment, I was very focused on the journey, focused on that present moment awareness, on enjoying my game. And I started to have the best results. And I started to have the most fun, but also the most success. And so since that experience, and when I look back on it, I always think of that and I always try to carry that with me no matter where I am in my journey.
Frida Fagerlund, Swedish Aftonbladet. Question for the coach. I assume you've analyzed the Swedish team very thoroughly. In your opinion, how many Swedish players would grab a spot in your starting 11 based on the quality of the players?
I mean, I'm not an expert on the Swedish team, so I will defer that question. I mean, I think they've got a great group of players, and I think that's speculation. I don't have a magic ball. I have to see them come try out and play and interact and all those things. But I have tremendous respect for the players on the Swedish side, what they've accomplished, and just obviously the talent that they have.
Another question? Yes.
Thank you. I have a question in English. Kristen, it's Tom Gary, BBC. Could I just follow up, please, on a...
She's right.
Over
He's
here.
in the
Sorry,
back.
hi.
Sorry, I could not find you.
Can I follow up, please, Kristen? Question for Kristen, please. Jill was talking about Marta earlier. After she broke the goal-scoring record last night, Marta talked about the struggle for equality for women around the whole world and how she thought this tournament was a chance for women to help the fight for better equality. Do you agree with that? And how do you feel that your performances and your actions at this tournament can hopefully have a big impact?
Yes, I think that, a lot of female professional athletes spend a lot of time off, the pitch, the court, whatever they're playing on, to advocate for better treatment of women in sports and in all careers. And I think we take a lot of pride in that. And at the end of the day, when I sit back and look at what we can do to help the future of the game, there's nothing more important than our performance and our performance on the biggest stage. And so I think our team, in particular, the U.S. Women's National Team, has done so much in that fight for equality. But the best thing that we can do is have great performances in this tournament. And it's kind of a way to celebrate all that we fought for and all that we will continue to fight for as the game grows.
Right there.
Hello, and here. I come from China, from CCTV. I have questions to both of you. And so, a coach said you in this time you just focus one games. So, these games, what result do you want to get? What result do you want to get from this match?
Yeah, I mean, I think, building, we talked about in the, coming out of the group stage, you want to start to build momentum. So I think, you have two good results, but I think, what we said to the players is it really is about continuing that, feeling good when we leave the pitch tomorrow night about the performance. That's what you hope for. We know we're through to the next round, but we really want to sort of fine-tune the things that we feel. This is why it's such a good game for us, because it's going to be a good game to really work on some of the things that we're going to need, as we advance into the next round. So I think, the performance piece is the number one focus for us in terms of, executing the things that we want to do and giving our players, a good test against a good side.
Right there.
Kelly Whiteside, New York Times. Kristen, have you ever watched that Olympic loss since that moment? And also, if you could reflect on if there's anything in particular that got you through that and what you learned from that experience.
Yeah, I've watched pieces of it, and I think that the biggest lesson for me was about character. And I think when I look back on my career, all the moments that I'm most proud of have come after failure. And I think that's the easiest one to point at and look at that clear failure, and then evaluate how I did in responding to it. And I think the strength that it takes to get back up and to be courageous and to let it go and to continue to fight for your dreams and to not let the outside noise affect what you're doing. I think that I am very proud of that. And, now when small failures happen day to day, I can look back at moments like that and know that I can deal with it.
Right here.
In English, Doug McIntyre, Yahoo Sports. Jill, your team hasn't been tested much defensively in the first couple games. I'm just curious how cautious you have to be in this game specifically and going forward to not leave yourself vulnerable in the back when you're pushing so hard to score. And kind of as a follow to that, how important is Alyssa going to be to come up with that big save when you really need it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's again why this is such a good game, because we know Sweden as an excellent transition team and love to get in behind, and so I think for us it's making sure that you build in these countermeasures to deal with that, and you have the experience to deal with that, and ultimately it's that moment making the right decision. But when you're attacking, you're almost preparing for that moment, in terms of positioning and making sure that that you are balanced. I think those split moments. It comes down to focus, and a lot of consequences of that is the focus of making sure we're in the right spot, or reading the game correctly, and making the right decision. And that's why, again, this is going to be great for us, because we do need to sharpen that in terms of the first two games we haven't had a lot of balls to deal with in behind, and Alyssa hasn't had a lot to deal with. But I'd also sort of remind the players that we've played one of the most competitive schedules, and for that very purpose, to have as many of those moments before we came to this big stage, to kind of be vetted at that level. What was the question about Alyssa?
Just how important is she? Goalkeepers always have to make a big save at some point.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's a given. In terms of making sure they're focused and in the moment. Yeah, for sure.
Right there.
Jeff Kassouf, English, Equalizer Soccer. Jill, Peter just earlier joked that the U.S. might have the thickest set-piece binder in the world. I'm curious. I'm just curious, when you're designing them, looking to implement them, how much of it is this is just a great play that's going to work versus this is tailored to a specific opponent that has a specific weakness?
Yeah, I think it's a balance. I mean, I think that 80% of what we do is based on the strengths of ourselves. But certainly, I credit my staff. They do a fantastic job, both Graham and Tony, in terms of looking at what our strengths are on set pieces. I think going into 2015, we spent a lot of time in it because, as we see in every major world event, set pieces are critical. I think, I don't know when the last press conference was, but at that point it was like almost 50% of the goals in this tournament had been scored in set pieces. So it's a vital part of the game. But yeah, I think we spend the bulk of our looking at where we are strong in terms of what we can do, and then also, obviously take advantage of certain situations and certain matchups if they present themselves.
Yeah. Back in the back.
Hi, I'm Clement from Canal Plus France. Question for Kristen. Kristen, you kept saying and other players during press conferences that your confidence is at a peak. Could you tell us about how confident you feel as a team and as a player? And some of the French press says that the US are unbeatable. Is it what you think as well?
Yeah, I think that our team is in a really good mental place, and that has come from a long period of time. And often, when you get into a World Cup, people are looking at you in that moment. But what this team has, we've built over years, and that's in playing incredibly competitive matches for the last 2 years, and failing, learning, scoring goals, kind of getting back up, shuffling things, trying different situations out. And I think now the team feels confident in what we can do, in how we can adjust, in how we can play, in our style, in our team identity. And I think that, when you go into a World Cup, it's a shooting star moment. And it's a really special splice of what you are. And I think that it takes so much more than that to have the perfect 7 games. But we're incredibly confident in what we've done to set ourselves up to be successful here.
Yeah. One last question right there.
In English, it's Kelly Kobiella with NBC News. This is for both of you. I'm wondering, Kristen, you said a few moments ago that this team is very different from the 2016 team. Could both of you talk a little bit about how this team is different? Maybe not just about players, but mentality, way of play, skill, depth, all of those things.
I mean, I think it is different players. I think there is a common thread throughout this program in terms of mentality. I think that is something that you can look back 20 years, and I think that has to be a common thread in all the players that have come through this program. So I think there's definitely threads that run through the program's history in terms of mentality and mindset, athleticism, these types of things. I think where I think we have players now that are a lot comfortable on the ball, more comfortable on the ball in tight spaces, and that's not a negative to what we had. I think we've just as our game has evolved, even in the U.S. I mean, players have come through, and you see players like Rose Lavelle and obviously Tobin's fantastic. And we've got a lot more. Kristen Pressey here. We've got a lot of players that have a balance now of technique and athleticism. Which I think is, kind of the home run in terms of what you're looking for as a coach. Can you have players that can do it at a high level and do it well? And I think that's really what we have. So I think Kristen can talk to the dynamics within the team. It definitely feels like a very cohesive team. I think there's strength in that. They're a tight group of players. I think chronologically, age-wise, it's more diverse than we've probably ever been in our program's history. But I think the players that have that are part of this have stood a tough test. It was kind of a gauntlet we put them through over the past 18 months, and I think we came out a year ago, and this is our group, and we've really worked hard to build a cohesive unit that understand the roles and responsibilities within the team. So it's hard. It's like comparing children, in terms of teams, but I think the qualities of this team are pretty special.
Yeah, I actually feel very similar to that. The mental piece is something that you learn when you enter this world, and you pass down when you leave. And that's something that's part of our heritage and our history, and everything that makes us the successful program that we are. And then as the games evolved, the teams evolved, and both technically and tactically we're able to do things that we weren't able to do 3 years ago.
Thank you very much, and good luck in the match tomorrow.